it's a very, it's not going to disrupt any other use that's going on in the IL zone, just like it doesn't in the residential zone, our most protected zones. Museums are allowed as of right, and we think it should be the same situation. And there's nothing about a museum or an art gallery that's going to cause a problem to an adjoining use. So when you look at what the zoning ordinance says about special permits and special exceptions, so it says the following. It says section 63D, and says the same thing for a special permit, special exception. It's when it says it's appropriate when certain uses and features, because of their unique characteristics, cannot be distinctly classified or regulated in a particular district without consideration in each case of the impact of such use and features upon neighboring uses. And there's nothing about an art gallery that really would raise to that concern of, or a library or a museum that is going to impact adjoining uses. And the city plan report, which the staff wrote, said that, you know.
Which the commissioners didn't do.
Well, they adopted the whole report, but not the conclusion, right?
Well, the way that works is that the commissioners talk and then they vote on the recommendation. We don't usually rewrite the report. No, maybe in the future we will, but it's something the commissioners can talk about. Oh, sometimes I rewrite portions of the report because like that, as my colleagues know. It's an affliction, perhaps. But in any case, I would just say that, yes, the commission has some amount of discretion when it comes to a special permit, but not a huge amount, and there are criteria, and you have to justify the judgments you're making. The other thing I would just say is, and then I'll move on, Mr. Chair. Is my mic not working? Oh, no, it is. The other thing I would just say, what we're talking about in these IL zones, as you've pointed out, is portions of New Haven where the industrial past that ship has sailed. And the city, of course, has been supportive in a variety of ways for the redevelopment of these formerly industrial areas for different uses, right? So that's clearly part of what the city has done. But because they have their industrial past, they have certain features and the proximities to other kinds of zones, into rail infrastructure, into water, into other things. And so when you think about adding other uses to these areas, you need to think about the uses you're adding, but you also need to think about the area you're adding them to, which has certain legacy features that may or may not be compatible with whatever use you would want to allow in that area. And so the special permit would provide the commission the ability to look at the particular proposal that whatever applicant is putting forward, look at the area that would happen, and make a judgment based on the criteria about whether or not that would be a good fit. So it also provides the opportunity for the public to weigh in and to give public testimony, which is not the case when you have an as of right use. And so it's just something to think about. I can understand why you and the team would not like that, because it makes sense. An applicant wants to move forward and have the fewest obstacles possible. But as legislators, we have to think about the broader context. We have to think beyond, of course, your immediate situation, which really can't drive our decision. We have to think about what's right for all these parts of New Haven that are currently mapped as IL, and would we want that to be as of right, or would we want some other process to be in place?
May I respond to that? Or
it's up to the chair.
This will be portrayed, but you could say that, one could say that about any use that has become an IL. Like when somebody wants to put in a daycare, why isn't that by special permit, right? You have two children, they're outside. Well, somebody wants to put in a beauty salon. That's an as-of-right use. Somebody wants to put in a restaurant, are we gonna decide whether a restaurant should be there or a professional use? Somebody wants to put in an office building. That's as-of-right. So I think there's gotta be a certain kind of use that requires a special permit. And I don't think this museum or an art gallery, once you go down that path, it's hard to say why an art gallery would need to have a special permit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Alder Evelyn Rodriguez.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd just like to bring to your attention under the non-university museum, I don't see there the Hill Museum, which is located at 212 West Street, Pico Abbott.
So,
And which leads me to see that there are other spaces in New Haven that are not on this list, that are expressions of culture and art that are not here. You shared, and I need to understand, in reference, how do you sustain the Lost Museum? When you're talking about industrial manufacturing buildings, taking them, they're old, there's gonna be work that needs to be done to these buildings. And you shared, would you, as a non-for-profit, be able to afford all these fixes, or are you going to be coming back to the city to ask for the support and help?
I really liked your question about the Hill Museum because I went through the list of, in the economic study, they listed all the non-cut foods. So I came to the Hill Museum. So I called up the Hill Museum and I said to them, I understand, we have this museum, and I know from the train station, those drawings. And he said, oh, do you want to come over? And I said, sure. I said, but I'm making a list of museums in New Haven. He said, don't put me on the list. So that's how the Hill Museum came not to be on my list. But I'm wondering if Roz might want to talk about, or Jim, who's the treasurer, how you are running this nonprofit and whether or not you intend to come back to the city.
Can you type that into zoning?
Actually, I'm the secretary of the board, not the treasurer, but
Oh,
I do work on the finance committee of Lost, and it's a good question. I don't think it does tie into zoning. I also think that that we sustain it through fundraising and grants and admission fees and fees for events. That's the model. And I think while we would apply for any like arts related grant programs the city has that are relevant to us. I don't anticipate that we'll be coming to the city for any kind of like major infusion of funds to help us sustain the core operations. That's really our responsibility.
Thank you. The purpose of that question is because the sustaining, you have shared that there would be an opportunity, should you do a change in zone, that in that building, that these buildings that you would obtain, that there's a chance for other museums to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And so you also shared in supporting your zoning request that it's a right. My question to you is, if it's a right, how many buildings would one need? Or is it in fact cultural activity, cultural awareness that really is what matters in us in being in compliance to the right of the culture, versus us having to change a zone for the purpose of what, building more buildings?
I'm not sure I understand.
My question is, what is actually the right? Is the right the amount of buildings in a neighborhood regarding culture, or is the right that we make sure that we have cultural awareness, culture activities, the expression of culture in our neighborhoods?
Yeah.
I think, for instance, even if Lost in New Haven did not purchase or did not receive 60 Hamilton, and it remained on the tax rolls, let's say, that space could not be used for museum purposes because it's in an IL zone. And what is it about museum purposes that are disturbing to anybody? You know, in other words, you would want spaces to be able to be used for culture, all kinds of cultural things, whether it's a not-for-profit or it's a for-profit or it's a whatever it is. But those uses are now incompatible with the IL zoning. So the question is, since there's not a toxic effect of these kinds of activities in any zone, including residential zones, although I hear what you're saying, Alderman Marchand, about the situation in the space and the other things that also need to be taken into account as you figure all of this out. But it's not that you would need more and more buildings, but to be able to use some of the buildings that are there that are not being used, for instance, to do some of the cultural things that we would like to see happening all over the city, but where it's harder to find space to do them, where musicians get kicked out because somebody's developing a project and there's not practice space. There are all kinds of things. We're lucky to live in a city where there's so much vibrancy of the cultural scene. There's not enough spaces for art galleries and studios and all kinds of activity that people want to be able to do. So this would be taking the next step to say, yes, we don't really see a harm in having these kinds of activities be permitted as of right in these kinds of spaces. IL zones would still be IL zones. They could still have IL zone uses for the spaces where that was appropriate. I think we're not challenging that at all. We're just looking to see whether we can expand the platform and the reach of spaces that artistic and cultural activities could use around the city before waiting, years for the cultural plan, for the new zoning plan to finally come into effect, which theoretically, given that we have Vision 2034, is going to be along these lines, and which city planning and the BZA, maybe it's just city planning, have said, yes, indeed, this is the direction that we're heading. So could we head there sooner? That's really the question.
I just want to add, it's very expensive downtown rents, right, for cultural institutions. In an IL zone, the expense of renting areas is going to be less. So it's going to allow cultural activities to flourish because they can afford to go into these spaces where maybe they couldn't afford to go in a residential or business zone.
Thank you. I think I'm going to deviate just a little bit if there are no other, because we've been at this for an hour.
Okay.
If there are no other pressing questions, what I would ask, I'm going to look out there. Is there anyone that's going to testify on this item? So everyone that signed up here is for this item? Okay. Jeez Louise. All right, so what we'll do is we'll ask if you would just stick around, and then if we need to, we will call you back and have some further dialogue.
Thank you for listening to us for so long.
So we'll go right to our portion. I'll ask our vice chair if she would pronounce those names and read them. So what we're going to do is our vice chair is going to call the names that have signed up. If you have not signed up, when we go to these names, I will ask if there's anyone who wishes to testify that has not signed up, and then you'll have an opportunity.
Oh, sorry. I know Miss Alison Heimer has a 2-year-old and just wondering if it's possible at all to maybe accommodate her earlier than some others. She's a mother.
You know how this works.
I know, I'm happy to wait.
She's been around our city for a while. Yep.
Okay, the first person up is Mr. Albert Eden Lee.
I should mention, okay. After you give your name and address, go ahead, have a seat, sir. After you give your name and address for the record, you will have 3 minutes to testify.
And just, so the next person knows, Nicholas Orone, Lost, Left, 78 Edgewood Avenue. You're next.
Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Chair Furlow and members of the Legislation Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Albert Eden. I'm the Aquatics Manager at New Haven, and I'm here in support of Lost in New Haven. I'll keep this focused on impact, what that means for our young people, our families, and our neighborhoods. Lost in New Haven is more than a museum, it's a cultural hub. It brings together immersive exhibits, interactive experiences, and real artifacts that tell stories of the city. It creates a space where yesterday, today, and tomorrow all meet on. At LEAP, we serve over 2,000 young people across 6 neighborhoods, and what we know is that youth development goes beyond programs. It's about exposure, access, and connection. It's about helping young people understand their identity, their environment, and their place in the world. Many of our young people walk through New Haven every day without fully knowing the history around them. Lost in New Haven helps close that gap. It turns the city itself into a classroom, one that's interactive, engaging, and culturally relevant. What makes this space especially powerful is how it blends everything: local history, U.S. history, pop culture, business, art, all in one place. One thing to add to mention to that, as you look at events coming up, financial literacy for young folks between grades 6 and 12, rising young folks, teaching financial literacy, something to highlight just outside the arts, bringing and bridging financial services to young folks. I can picture LEAP kids walking over. We're at 31 Jefferson Street, not too far, stepping into that space, seeing familiar names, neighborhoods, and stories, and making real connections. That's not just a visit, that's development in action. Again, we're talking about access. Located right on Hamilton Street, this isn't just for tourists or downtown visitors. It's placed within reach of local families, schools, and communities. That matters. Because this is about making sure cultural opportunities aren't limited by zip code, Lost in New Haven is also built for education, hence the financial literacy. It offers field trips, partnerships, and programming for young people of all ages. That aligns directly with the work we're doing every day at LEAP. And it's already resonating with people who describe it as a place that brings back memories, sparks curiosity, and creates connections across generations. That kind of response tells you this is something meaningful for the city. At its core, this is about connection to place, to history, and to opportunity. If we want young people to feel connected to the city, here's another opportunity to give them spaces and access where they can see themselves in it. I encourage you to support Lost in New Haven. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And thank you for what you do with LEAP.
I appreciate that.
Vice Chair.
Thank you. Nicholas Perron.
Yes.
And after Nicholas is Yong Lee.
And I'm going to just reset this just a little bit. So we're talking about the light industrial zone having this table amended, a text amendment. So we appreciate all that Lost in New Haven has done, but this is not about Lost in New Haven. It's about creating a zone that allows organizations like Lost in New Haven to be able to function as of right in an IL zone. And so I'm just phrasing, if your testimony is about that, that's, you have your 3 minutes, you can say what you want to say, but if you want us to hear you, then it needs to be about the IL zone and having that change to allow nonprofits or those that don't carry on as a gainful business, which includes art galleries, libraries, museums, to be able to do business in an IL zone. Okay? So thank you, sir. Your name and address for the record.
Thank you for that clarification. So my name is Nicholas Perrone. I live at 769 Edgewood Avenue in New Haven. So I'll start first as a resident of New Haven, and I just want to thank you all for being here tonight, because I know that you're giving up your time, and these are important matters and have a lot of depth to them, of course. I just want to reference an experience that I shared last week, and it happens to be specifically at Lost, but I do want to just make it relevant to any place that would be open in an IL zone that could be for some sort of cultural reference. This was after hours. It was an 8 p.m. evening kind of experience. There were nearly 200 people from in New Haven and outside. And most notably, I just want to point out my 17-year-old son, who as a New Haven resident and student that goes to New Haven Public Schools, came out to a cultural event, which if anybody has teenagers, you can understand the importance and the impact of something like this. So this one example of what Lost represents for our community and me as a citizen is impact. Well, has a great deal of impact that it can have on young people. And the reason why I mention that is because these are 200 people that would have essentially been sitting on their couches at home watching television or something of the like. But instead, they were filling up a building in an industrial light zone area that was vibrant, that was relevant, that was provocative in a lot of ways, that made people think. Secondly, as an administrator, a New Haven Public Schools administrator, I am passionate about the opportunities that we can present to our students and our youth. And the reason why I excused my address today, I was out on a field trip with my students, my sophomores. We were enjoying some experience at Camp Hazen today. So by my calculation, there are about 6 schools within walking distance specifically of Lost in New Haven. And now again, I want to make it more broadly and talk about the balance of any industrial light zone and the schools that may be close. The point of the matter is that when we can't get a bus, we are forced to then either do something more online, which nobody wants more of that, or we find places that are within walking distance. When we have high quality experiences within walking distance, that just makes the experience that much better. So for my students specifically, in the last 2 weeks, we have gone on 6 walking trips to museums within the high school. I should explain, I'm the principal of high school in the community. Sorry, so there's some relevance there as far as my specific location. 6 locations that we have walked to within the last 2 weeks. Lost is one of those places that we can walk to. And I just want to point out that as a school that pushes for experiential education, Lost in New Haven and any museum that can move into a specific light industrial spot has the power to impact many students. And I think both as a public school administrator and as a resident of New Haven, this is something that should be given a lot of focus to provide these experiences for our students. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions from committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. Yong Lee. And after Yong Lee is Ms. Marcella Blake.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Lee, 107 Whitney Avenue, New Haven, Connecticut, 06510. Dear Board of Alders, I am speaking to express my opposition regarding the petition First of all, I think it's not a controversial opinion that we all here support cultural activities. I don't think that's really what we're debating. I love walking my 2-year-old to a museum as much as anybody else does. I think New Haven has a lot to offer in that department. I don't think that's what we're debating today. I think we're debating what zoning is appropriate for the use and which uses ought to go first in a time when the city is in a massive need of housing and we have a housing affordability crisis. I asked the Board of Alders to oppose the petition for 2 reasons. One, the citywide change to the IL district has massive impacts to the tax revenue. I think it's a bit disingenuous to talk about how much art galleries and museums contribute to the rent today versus thinking about if this were to pass and any nonprofit could go buy a $50,000 lot, $100,000 warehouse, land bank it, use it. And again, at a time that other uses, as Alder Marsham has acknowledged, these IL zoning is really historical industrial zones, right? So it's a mixed use situation currently. So if we're talking about, there's approximately 450 million of value according to the city's own valuation across IL. So if you're thinking about 10%, 20% of that value being followed by nonprofits, getting off the grant list. My wife and I pay over $20,000 a year in property tax. I once had coffee with a Yale professor who said that even Yale professors are finding the current property tax situation in New Haven challenging and are forced to look out of town. And every year I hear from the media, from this very same chamber, that over half the city's grant list is affected by nonprofits. And I think at the very least, the impact of city finance ought to be considered while the rest of us in New Haven pay our share. The second ramification is that the city really needs to initiate a comprehensive IL zone reform that A, includes safe harbor protections for classic light industrial usage, and second of all, allow residential usage by right. The safe harbor is essential to ensure that light industrial businesses, which contribute vital tax revenue and local jobs, are not forced to cease normal operations. The residential usage by right reform aligns with the nonprofit cultural activities allowance. I think we heard a lot about Vision 2034 tonight. And again, I'm a bit, excuse my French, offended that we're talking about balanced growth and economic growth for all. And we're talking about a museum that is so proud to display the cultures of New Haven, of the different ethnicities and the past that we had. But we're now a city with 30% Hispanic, 30% Black population, and we all need housing. So I think the fear, and quite founded so, with the petitioner's past actions, is that for this chamber to allow for nonprofit usage would, again, excuse my language, allow for first arrival, first colonizer rights for the nonprofits to say, hey, we've had 200 people come to the museum. You all want to do a housing project right next to an already existing housing? Then that's going to be too much traffic. There's going to be too much parking. I think we can drive a win-win. I think it just needs to be comprehensive. Thank you for your time.
Any questions from committee? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. Ms. Marcella Flake. And then the next person is Bryce June.
Thank you. Your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Marcella Monk Flake. My address is 150 Fountain Terrace. I'm listening to everything that's being said here tonight. I'm very emotional because I was born and raised in New Haven, educated in New Haven public schools. My neighbors, the Rodriguez family, and Carla and Jeanette and Mrs. Morris and Amy. And longer story short, my life could have gone a very different way. Growing up in a very violent, or I shouldn't just say violent, but an enigmatic neighborhood can put a child on the wrong trajectory. And very often we think about dollars and cents, but you'll have to pay on the front end or on the back end. And we need spaces where we can minister to our children, where children have places to come that are safe, that are engaging, that help develop creative thinking. And we're preparing children for professions we don't even know exist yet. Tomorrow's going to be very different for young people. And if we don't have some mixed use or some leniency as a nonprofit, I'm an executive director of Monk Youth Jazz and STEAM Collective. After teaching 37 and a half years in New Haven Public Schools, I've devoted my life to young people because once again, I know how badly things could have gone for me. But thank God there were programs, there were things in the community that kept us involved, that kept us motivated, that enriched us. And as a parent, a grandparent, an educator, a program director, I'm asking that you would consider some of these vacant buildings being used, so that people like myself can do this work. I can't afford a space downtown New Haven. And our children don't need to see dilapidated spaces. I will raise loss because loss has been wonderful for my nonprofit. My kids go in, they have their performances, they walk into this beautiful space, they feel as if it belongs to them. We have video recordings of elderly Black people who those histories would be lost had it not been for Lost investing in getting those personal narratives recorded and preserved. So I just say to you, please make it easy for people like me and other nonprofits who want to do this work, who want our children to grow up strong. Please make it easier for us by helping us get into some of these vacant spaces. Every time I drive by an abandoned place that used to be a manufacturing spot, I think about what could be going on in that space, where we could bring young people together from across the city and just really build our city. I'm sorry, I know there's a lot of emotion in my voice because it's not about dollars and cents and whether or not, and I know the city has to run, I understand that. But we've got to invest in young people. We have to invest in young people. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions from committee? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bryce June, and after Bryce is Ruben is the last name. Eli.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me the floor to speak as well. My name is Bryce June. I'm a rising senior at Yale University. I'm a student athlete, and I'm also the founder and CEO of Bulldog Storage, which is a small business that I'm currently operating. We focus on keeping items for college students over the summer, many of which—
Just give us an address for the record.
Oh, I apologize, sir. I live at 104 Howe Street in New Haven, Connecticut. Yes, sir. Excuse me. So yeah, I was speaking about my business a little bit, but I just want to speak on the opposition of this matter and talk about how it's been extremely difficult for me to find space to store my items for the summer. You tend to look for a climate-controlled space that will be ideal for refrigerators, and some college students don't know how to do laundry, so you have to do that properly as well. But yeah, there's been extremely limited space throughout Connecticut, and things can get extremely expensive for me as well. My service serves a need of a real need of the community, as many students at Yale and other neighboring universities travel from all over the United States and even the entire globe, at Yale specifically. And they don't have space to store their items. They don't always have money. They're just college students, so they're not raking in a ton of income yet. And so my service is what I would call an affordable solution for that. There are other services I choose to be about 50% of the cost, just because I know that I can really support that. And so, like I said, my business depends heavily on warehouse and industrial spaces to operate. And I would argue that type of space is extremely limited and already hard to find before this matter has been passed. So yeah, furthermore, I urge you guys to really diversify these spaces. No one's saying that there's no room for art galleries and museums. In fact, I love a good stroll, as was mentioned earlier, to one of our wonderful art galleries that we have in the community. And I argue heavily that there's still room for that without this matter being passed by all means. And it's important that we create balance, still allowing the rest of the community and young entrepreneurs or any entrepreneurs like myself to access these spaces, which are absolutely in demand by everyone and absolutely suitable and essential for industrial purposes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from committee? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. Ruben? Alahu, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
And after Alahu would be,
Alias.
Ali.
Thank you.
Your name and address for the record.
Yes, hi everyone, thank you. I'm Elihu Rubin. I live at 95 Audubon Street, number 110 in New Haven, Connecticut. I'm a board member of Austin New Haven, and I do support Austin New Haven, and I support this petition. I'm actually not really going to speak in that capacity right now. I'm also an AICP certified city planner with a strong interest in revitalizing industrial zones in New Haven and in many other places. I think that we should change the use table to allow this use as of right. I think that it's consonant, it's in line with many of the other things that are already on the use table, including trampoline centers, office buildings, restaurants, antique stores, barbershops, pharmacies, groceries, food specialty. All of this is already as of right. I think, Mr. Marchand, as you importantly raised, this doesn't mean that there won't be site plan review. It doesn't mean that there won't be other special exceptions for parking or anything else that comes up. I want to reiterate what I can never speak as eloquently as Ms. Marcel Monflake, but it is about making it a little bit easier for these uses to take shape in areas where they're already happening. We know that the area is already mixed use. There already are variances. The museums are already there, actually. But if there's too much resistance, it's going to make it harder for them to take shape. To the gentleman who just spoke, there's absolutely no reason why he can't locate his business in these zones. I think that's very important. He absolutely can locate it in these zones. All of the existing industrial uses can continue to take place in the zones. The economic issue, my own personal opinion, cultivating cultural institutions in these zones will have a more significant economic impact actually on the city positively than trying to preserve the few buildings that nonprofits may end up purchasing to take them off the grand list. The grand list is not the only way that the city and the region make money. Cultural institutions are economic drivers. There's no doubt about that. And the future of cities like New Haven and these zones is to be more mixed use and is to allow more of these types of uses in these places. So yeah, I think that's mostly what I really wanted to say. There are some things on the use table as of right I'd like to take off the use table as of right, like adult businesses, for example, which I believe are already as of right on the list. Do you have the list there too? I mean, it's very interesting to read what is and is not as of right. In terms of housing, as of right, as was raised by a previous speaker here, to me, housing residential as of right in an IZ should be more controversial than cultural institutions, partly because of the fact of remediation of these brownfield sites. They're actually much more difficult. That would be a very interesting conversation to allow residential as of right in these areas as well. But to me, that would be much more controversial than allowing these types of uses. Thanks very much for your time. Thanks for your commitment to these issues. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your testimony.
Ali Heimer, and then after Ali would be Nina Bender.
The baby sleep.
Yeah, I missed that time, but that's okay.
Your name and address for the record.
Allison Heimer, I am the proud owner of a house at 54 C Street in New Haven. And I'm under contract to buy a new house in New Haven as well, at 816 Orange Street. you guys know me pretty well. I've been around for a bit, involved in a lot of different things. I'm a nerd. I love a museum. I love an art gallery. We love the library. Like, those spaces are great. They're awesome. And I think it's interesting that as somebody who, and this is a little bit of a brag, but I just finished my degree in scientific illustration from Yale Peabody Museum, and so I am now an artist, certified artist, and I would love to display my work in galleries. I don't know exactly why a place like any kind of industrial warehouse would be considered safe for a daycare or safe for a museum without some kind of environmental survey or risk assessment. But if they are safe for these uses without question and without any kind of check, then they should be safe for housing as well. And so we should allow conversion of these spaces into more housing in New Haven, which is desperately needed affordable housing. We also, we have a number of properties in New Haven that I feel are disproportionately taxed highly. I know anybody here who's a homeowner pays property taxes. I pay $1,000 a month in taxes. I'm not asking you to cut $1 of what you're spending in the city, but I am asking that when we allow for nonprofit usage of spaces that are getting tax income now, it does put that burden on everybody else. And so I'm not concerned about, if somebody wants to open an art gallery or somebody wants to open up a museum. What I'm worried about is people who may have a very large amount of money, like an endowment, who want to purchase some properties that are for sale right now that are actively contributing to the tax roll, and then say, oh, the kids aren't checking out the books from Sterling anymore, so let's make this warehouse and the 10 acres over in Ward 12 a library. We're not going to tax it anymore because that's a permittable use. And now we're going to use Sterling for offices, or we're going to use it for something else. I think that the risk isn't for people who in the community genuinely want to do good things and want to build really interesting places and community. I think the risk is for bad actors, and I think a variance for this block, great idea, let's make that permanent, but I don't necessarily think it should be a citywide situation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. Nina Bender, and after Nina, there's a Carol Lopez.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is Nina Bender. I live at 59 Spring Glen Terrace in Hampton, and I'm here representing 3 commercial buildings that I own in New Haven: 335 East, 580 Grand, and 550 Grand. These buildings are light industrial. I am the owner of the buildings, and my family for the past 100 years was the owner of the business as the tenant. We are wholesale, retail, warehousing, and distribution. And I do not oppose the museum. My family's featured in the museum. It brings me so much joy that my kids will get to see their great-great-grandmother featured as a business owner in a museum from 100 years ago. But my fear is that a sweeping change would allow so many businesses to come in that don't pay taxes that it would make the tax-paying businesses bear their burden. And that would make rent go up, which would make businesses seek other locations. And that would lead to empties and homogeneous tenants in residential spaces, which would lead to a lack of the Lost in New Haven Museum's goal, which is cultural equity. But if so many nonprofits exist, cultural equity will no longer exist because the people in those spaces will be a homogeneous group of people. There are a few things that I'd like to counter that were said by the museum's representation. They spoke about employment, employing people in the city. My tenant's company, Vendor Plumbing Supply, employs over 200 people in the state of Connecticut, and New Haven is our largest branch. That's a lot of employees that would leave if my tenant left. Sorry, let me look at my notes. All of this was new today to me. I did not know this was happening until today. The museum's representation also claimed that that the light industrial buildings in this space are no longer, they're a moot point, that they're no longer used. It's not true. My tenant's currently expanding by 20,000 square feet. That's how much this location and their uses are important. This specific location, something my dad always taught me was, it's a great location. We're at the crux of so many highways. That is what warehousing and distribution needs. And yes, that's great for museums too, but maybe a special variance that was brought up is the answer, instead of sweeping changes that have long-term effects that if we don't pay attention to might actually make the museum's whole goal not be met. We want diverse populations, we want high taxes for the city, but not such high taxes that people can't operate in the city. It just doesn't work for everybody. So a more holistic view can be healthier for everyone.
Did you have anything else you want to add? Is that your complete?
That's my complete.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions from committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much for your time.
Carol Lopez.
Hi, Carol Lopez, Horsford, 107 Whitney Ave, New Haven. I'm a commercial realtor and I'm the owner of the Farnham Realty Group in New Haven. And I just wanted to address the narrative of, the vacant buildings in the IL zones. One is it's a choice of that owner to keep it vacant. Either one, the buildings need too much work that they can't find a tenant, or they don't want to sell them, or it's a personal choice. So I work with these owners every day. I try to get them to sell, rent, move on, so we can try to, get people like Bryce spots where they can open their business. That's my goal. I just wanted to say a couple things. Just like Nina spoke about with the commercial tenants, if we could get these landlords to let us lease or rent or sell their buildings, we would have full IL zones. People want spaces. People are looking for spaces. Every day I get calls. People want to do business in New Haven. They just can't find the right space, the right dynamic. I think it's a slippery slope to try to change the citywide zoning code. There's, when they listed all those streets, there's IL in so many different wards. That was a great thing. So it's not just this strip of East Street, but I think that I love museums. I have a master in art history. I go to flea markets every weekend digging for, treasures. I totally love that they've brought that to our town. I just want to make sure that we're making smart decisions because trends change, real estate changes, and what people want change. And if we make this change to, a blanket change of the zoning code, in 20 years, we might regret that when, we need something else, like maybe super churches are going to come in and that'll change everything again, right? So the code was written for a reason, and it protects us. It protects our town, and it protects the future of what we want to do. Thanks so much for everybody's time.
Thank you. That's all that we have signed up for this public hearing. Is there anyone who hasn't testified who wishes to testify on this matter? Anyone who wishes to testify who hasn't on this matter? For the third time, anyone wishing to testify on this matter who hasn't? Okay, seeing none, what we're going to do is take a 7-minute comfort break. And then I know Attorney Pinto, and then we're gonna be right back with our second item.
So we deliberate this first item after hearing the next item. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go this way. Yes, sir.
Thank you for your time, your work. Thank you for your service to the meeting. It's not fun to be here. And I think I've reached out to Jen to try to find a common ground, and I hope that I think we can, like I think what we want for. Yeah, this isn't about, yeah, you don't have to.
No, you talk to them.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I don't think we're not on our hearts on what we want for the block. And I think, yeah, it'd be amazing to have a block with this kind of museums with mixed use across the street. For my friends and who knows how quickly the birds will move, some, you know, I mean, Steve, turn, they're cool.
There's a lot of options.
I want to say, right or wrong, they're cool as immigrants speaking up, against someone they think, well, I agree with you, very well, that they did a powerful, words. So yes, they wrote in support that bill privately. 2 years, 3 years, when they have the funds, like, will they get busy if they want to just conduct their business? So it's an immigrant dream. And yeah, I love to be great. I apologize. Yours is a really great perspective. I really don't have any choice. Because it's a great prompt. I think somehow 200 people in the house is okay with the law. Additional, a few dozen units.
Not using the fancy screen.
Oh, yeah, every day it's on, so I hope hopefully it'll be old school. And should we, yeah, save all legal fees and get home for our families.
You know, we were close. We couldn't. I don't know what happened. That's still something you want
commitment not supposed to be, because that's whatever the zone changes. Changes to allow X. If you want to do X, we could, under the agreement, we could propose it. So I think that is where, for me, it came across, because you were at blank checks, or whatever you want to do, as long as it says.
As long as the city hall says that it's. I think we would be saying, well, I think it has to be bilateral, right? So it says that like if you were at policy, by right usage by the city to do X, Y, Z, I wouldn't oppose it. But yeah, I hope to have.
Well, he clearly doesn't have to.
I hope to have a conflict by that, so that we can take this fear of a skyscraper across the street from you, at the table. And, I apologize for the way I do. I just, ask for your grace too, and I know your family has a great history of building housing and providing housing to anyone that needs it. And I think I don't have to state I've done my research, various peacemaking activities in urban centers. We can all do our research and hopefully quell our fears, because I think there are many examples. I think these are all complementary uses. The Nelly brothers want to make cheese next door and have tourists come through, and you have a great museum. That's amazing. So, I'm open to any other comment. Maybe something if you want. In a few days. I want to go home and see my baby. Yeah. We all do. Thank you. I apologize again. I hope we can find out.
Yeah. Right. Right. You can't cook. And we'll show you, they did fry eggs and everything. Yes. The guys are some thumbs, so I was out there for some of the so close to San Diego. And poor guy, we one who some books. Yeah, it's equal books. Yeah, I mean, there were other books, but they were we had one cohort that was in Central. In the desert between Arizona and the rest of California, there's nothing there. I think they did well though, because they could go back. Who didn't want to buy books from the college kids? Hey, I love Central for the summer. I support the kids, give them $20. They don't want to stay with us for the summer. We were fortunate. That's our son, we were in San Diego. It was a whole different world for us. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's why the weather became good. Because they had nothing to talk about. San Diego weather is nothing to talk about. The weather was the same every day. So it's nothing to say. Just what do you want to talk about? It was great. So you missed that, so I sent pictures back to my parents. And so that's in my post office. Because of what happened. So you don't be out of this is where I'm looking right now. These schools that know that I'm laws, West Coast, you start going to get serious. Right, so long, so like, yeah, I didn't know it was longer. What's going on? I realized, oh, you're back. This could go on for 3,000 miles. Right. And it'll lay somewhere along the way. You'll hit the river somewhere. Yeah, that's true. Colorado. Yeah. Yeah. All the way to the rock. Yeah. Yeah. When we came back.
She wasn't bad.
Yeah. Yeah, when we came back, going out, drove out, driving out, we were on schedule, so we were rushing, so we didn't get to do anything. But coming back, we didn't have time, so we all We're, it's Grand Canyon. Yeah. Don't worry, it's growing big enough. One day it's gonna well, the water's going down. So I was there.
Already aligned, I see. You don't need to be greater for me.
Yeah.
I'm good.
It's I was there. Maybe. But there, you know, they'll tell you, you can go and see the striations on the rock where the water used to be, but where it's now. It's just,
Well, right, it's like, all these millions of years have been cut through.
right, but even regularly, they're like, so there's a couple of islands out there, you know, this is Navy territory, bodies that were dumped these places, and all of a sudden, the water was running up, so we're like, hey, things are just popping up. All right, then, put something in the lakes. It's just coming out. There was an island in the middle of some, like, they're like, we have never seen this island. It's just been covered by water. So there's this big battle going on right now, all over town, for Colorado, and so everybody's dancing in the water. The first up there, the big game, correct. Yes.
They all got.
Right.
Trust me, they will fall.
Yeah, it's everybody had the.
At least we should have communication.
Oh,
They're really.
It's not.
The originalist that we have on the court can't read, can't read the text.
Congress shall have the power to enforce this appropriate legislation.
Right, we could be mandated, it's mandated.
That you get to decide whether that is appropriate.
Well, like, hey, they messed up that thing, we're gonna fix it. So we're gonna fix it, that's one order, oh, God, it's a pretty thing, yes. Those Republicans,
they were crazy trying to run
They could say, continue. All right, let's hear from the city.
It's a scary thing.
I'm available.
Do we have the amended,
I think we'll get it when he comes up.
So we switched from museums to cannabis. What if there's a cannabis museum? What do we do about that?
You're still in a goofy mood. He was in such a goofy mood last night.
I was mostly comatose until I woke up halfway through the
I
meeting.
know, but something got into you, rebellion.
I was listening to everybody talk about this shit, but I got me so.
We'll come back to order and we will call the presenters for our second item.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience this evening.
No problem. I apologize for being clearly tired.
It's not like we're not in budget season. Long meetings. If you give us your name and address for the record.
Michael Pinto, Assistant Corporation Counsel, 507 Central Avenue, Apartment 3, New Haven, Connecticut.
Robert Williams, 20 Westlaw Drive, North Haven, and Deputy Corporation Counsel.
You have the floor, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us back. We were here 2 months-ish ago on the ordinance amendment to adopt the civil enforcement and civil penalty provisions of the Connecticut General Statutes for section 21A-420C. I'm going to actually hand out, I'm hoping that everyone got the final version that would have come out late this afternoon, because there was something, we were actually on a call this morning with the Attorney General's office, and there are some potentially new enforcement powers authority coming down the pike in October, and we wanted to make sure that we had tweaked the language just sufficiently that we would incorporate those powers if and when they are passed. Because our original version discussed adopting the civil penalties, and we added the civil enforcement. And I raised this because on the call this morning with the Attorney General's office, apparently in the pipeline is in New York City, in New York, they have court orders to lock and to shutter a business that's violating and the other towns in the city and the state of Connecticut have been pressing for this, and it looks like it's probably going to pass. So the only difference from what you probably had seen earlier would be on page 2, the Board of Alders of the City of New Haven hereby adopts the municipal civil enforcement and civil penalty provisions of 21A-420C. And that was designed to make sure we have that flexibility, that we weren't just adopting these civil penalties, but if this shutter or other authority to address illicit sales of cannabis come down the pike, that we would be adopting that, we would be incorporating that authority without having to come rush back in October and do another amendment. I would like to address, so at our last meeting, there were several, and I hope everyone had a chance to review a memo. Let me just take the questions as we recalled and responded to them in order. Alder Rodriguez was asking why we had at the time proposed the executive director of LCI to be the enforcement officer. You'll see in the amended version, we have changed that to be the economic development administrator or that person's designee. And the reason for this is under the EDA, you already have the building enforcement
and zoning enforcement, which also comes under the building department, and then also LCI, which has anti-blight and housing enforcement. So the procedures for both the enforcement and streamlined approach to the hearing process to actually impose these fines are already in place and can simply be modeled with a new hearing officer that we would, that would be, so like we're already building off of staff, the staff that we have and the expertise that they've already developed. Alderman Marchand had asked that we check with the mayor's office to vet this. We have. If we were waiting on a final version, we have spoken with Michael Piscatelli, the Economic Development Administrator, who thinks it concurs with our decision. But if this committee and the Board of Alders generally wanted to take a little more time to determine who should be that, which would be the appropriate agency, the language of the amendment could be slightly amended to simply say the mayor or his designee shall identify what the appropriate agency to take the enforcement. Our office doesn't have, I mean, we made a recommendation, we stand by it, but we don't have, like, however the committee and the board decide to move forward, we're happy with that. And we will work with whatever agency, obviously, to help them craft whatever procedures they need to going forward. The Alder Marks. First, the question of what actually constitutes violation. The RERACA is a comprehensive, like we went back, RERACA is the comprehensive scheme for licensing and distribution of, or the cultivation and distribution and retail and medicinal sale of licensed cannabis. The issue here is in either selling or potentially cultivating, manufacturing, whether, in the case of gummies or, the Skittles that are full of THC. It's the unlicensed production, distribution, or sale. And that is what incurs the line, would potentially set up a violator. That's what constitutes a violation. Any violation where you do not have any engaging of cultivation, manufacture, delivery, or sale where it's in an unlicensed situation. Obviously, there are some there are actually exceptions for for homegrown and home use. You can grow like 4 or 5 plants, whatever it is. That's not what we're talking about. Vapes R Us, Hybros, the Planet Zaza, although that's in East Haven. The smoke shops that have proliferated and are clearly using the smoke shop situation to engage in, and some bodegas, but primarily the proliferation of these smoke shops, which are engaged in the unlicensed production, sale, and distribution of cannabis. And that is what that activity is what would subject the person to potentially arrest, and also the civil fines of $30,000 for that violation, and also it puts the landlord on notice that now you are knowingly renting to a business that is engaged in this illicit, in the unlicensed sale. And I say illicit because it is illicit, but I don't mean it in the, obviously we've decided that this should not be primarily a criminal issue, it should be a civil issue. So it's primarily the unlicensed. Although I will say that when these NHPD and other seizures happen, the quantities very much qualify for criminal prosecution as well. And there's almost, and in our conversations with the Department of Consumer Protection and the Attorney General's office, they have like effectively uniformly said there's almost no case in which there's not a criminal prosecution because they're taking out hundreds of pounds of unlicensed cannabis or gummies or whatever it is. The secondary issue is the implication of due process. We have had conversations with the Department of Consumer Protection, the Attorney General's office, and in rereading the statute, the RERAC statute itself and the civil enforcement, we are convinced that the actions are within that the city could take comply with the due process provisions of the 14th Amendment, particularly because if the way the statute is set up, if the mayor, and obviously it's, in this case, it's as a practical matter, it's enforcement staff, although the request to the Superior Court would be signed by the mayor, would be the city of New Haven by its mayor, submitted by its attorneys in practice. Has found, and you would swear out an affidavit, take it to then you have to take it to the Superior Court. You also have to file copies of that application with the Department of Consumer Protection and the Attorney General's office. And then it's evaluated by that the court has to make a finding, although it's ex parte and without a hearing, the court has to make a factual finding that there was a violation before it issues the seizure order, and there is nothing in the statute that would prevent the court from, of its own request, to say, I'm not quite sure. We are going to issue we're going to request we're going to order a hearing to show cause why this should not show cause order, or a show cause hearing, which effectively says, you business owner have been, the city's alleging that you have violated RERACA and are engaged in the illicit sale. We are prepared, and they've requested that we issue a seizure order of your illicit cannabis. You need to appear before this court and show cause why that order should not issue. So that there is although they can issue it without a hearing, there's nothing to say that the court could not order a hearing if it was not convinced that we had crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's in the process. The other question is the seizure. What do you do with the seized merchandise or seized proceeds? Almost all of these, in our conversations with DCP and the AG's office, and the raids that have happened in the city have all been in coordination between either with zoning enforcement, health, and the NHPD. The NHPD would primarily be the agency because they have the experience and the evidence locker, and because, as I said, the weight of product that's being taken out almost always is going to implicate a criminal element where the police department would have to have it maintained in the chain of evidence, chain of custody as criminal evidence, and then afterwards we would work with the DCP on destruction and as you would at the resolution of any particular drug case. And we've also worked with and gotten the policy guidelines for or from the Department of Consumer Protection as to like how they address their licensees, what you have to do, like when something is out of date, like whether a drug is out of date or the cannabis doesn't test properly, what you have to mix it with, or what the procedures are for actually destroying that, so that it can't be then, oh look, we've got some sticky weeds lying around, and that it fall into underage hands, or be somehow like put back in the illicit pipeline that we've just taken it out of. I think that covers it. I think we mentioned at the last hearing, like this is a massive issue and coming down the pipe. I mean, the Department of Consumer Protection, the AG's office, are now. We were on a call. Like I said, we were on a call this morning with a dozen other towns that are dealing with, and I think I mentioned at our last meeting, I had done just a quick Google search on Vapes.us and zoomed out, and there's at least 50 across the country that look exactly like the one I went at. And I'm sure if I had done a high rows, I would have come up with the same, a very similar situation. This is, for better, we've decided, the legislature of New Haven, of Connecticut, and across the country in decriminalizing cannabis, probably for the better, but there's a lot of unintended consequences that are coming along with it, and we're all going to be playing whack-a-mole for a while. It just, what's it called, hydros, apparently, like, after they got raided, have like rebranded themselves a clothing store. A clothing store, because it's an attempt to evade. So if they were a smoke shop, the Department of Consumer Protection has carte blanche, and the health department have carte blanche to just do raids, just show up and say, show us what you got. We're going to check everything out. For a clothing boutique, it's arguable it's arguable whether they have, or at least they're making this effort to disguise what they're doing. And make it harder for the civil, again, because this is civil enforcement, not criminal enforcement, it just makes it that much more difficult. So our office has gone through this fairly extensively again. We recommend that the committee make a favorable recommendation to the full board to adopt these powers. And like I said, the civil fines of $30,000 sound like a lot. When we talk to DCP, they're kind of like, they go to these places that look like nothing. They're doing $30,000 a day in business or more a day. And when you think of how many, this is just, I hate to say it this way, but this is like, the kids who get arrested for this are the clerk at High Rose or whatever. They're the new version of the corner boys. That's all. But now the enforcement is civil enforcement. Although obviously those kids, like the kid behind the counter, none of them go to jail for this, but it becomes we're not revisiting the incarceration issues that we were before, but it is, we're playing the same game of whack-a-mole that we were in the 1980s and 1990s and so-called war on drugs. We're just doing it now with civil enforcement. Our office does recommend that you adopt the enforcement times. And as I said, adding that amend, that tweak to the language to the civil enforcement and civil penalties when the lock and seize power is conferred. In New York City, they have the enforcing agents can get the order to not just seize what's on, but they can literally lock the doors. And you'll go through any manner of, like, any part of New York City right now, and you'll see what was a bodega or whatever that is, like padlocked and taped by the city of New York. I think maybe their help, or whatever their enforcing agency is, that says they've been, by court order, his business has been shuttered for violating their cannabis laws, or their cannabis sales laws. Like I said, it's probably in the long run a good policy decision to regulate, to legalize, regulate, and tax cannabis, but we do need to address the unintended consequences and the unlicensed, because the stuff that's illicit is way more powerful, way more potent than what you can get at a dispensary. And it's clearly marketed to children. And it's both dangerous and like, I'm sure, like, everyone at this table who has kids are like, oh, wow, that's cool. Like, oh, look, it's, Bart Simpson. Hey, Dad, can we go there? No, you can't go there. And so I just wanted to address, I think we've addressed most of the questions that were raised at the, and I want to be as forthcoming and as thorough as we possibly could. I spent way too much time in the last 2 weeks watching congressional hearings, and where the people on this side would say, well, do everything to not answer questions. Mm-hmm. It seemed a better approach in this case to build a working relationship with the legislators that we rely on, and to give you as much information as we possibly can, and make our best reasoned recommendations. Thank you.
I'm going to just briefly add that one change you'll see from the last time we were here was we redid the whereas clauses. And so you see at the beginning more of a background and a foundation for this, where it talks about what a violation is, and it runs through the amendment to RERACA in 2025 that sets the stage for this. The rest of it, Mike explained pretty well.
Thank you. Any questions from committee? Alder Marks?
I want to say thank you. Thank you for your letter of explanation. Appreciate the amount of time that went into it. In fairness, thank you for the rewriting of the whereases. I think it's incredibly helpful.
Recitals.
Recitals? I'll just say thank you very later for allowing me to ask my question. And thank you for the recitals. Appreciate it. I just want to start with a question about some things that I was able to read quickly. The packet you gave us in the Office of the Attorney General. And it appears right now that there may be more that we can put in the statute that's in the statute. So if I read the statute as proposed correctly, it's essentially prohibiting the unlicensed sale. And then it has, if you have the unlicensed sale, you can prohibit the business, apply to the court to seize, get your fines, right? I think I'm reading it correctly now. Appreciate the education you've given us, and I worked on it myself. It appears that there's some other really interesting things that the state law allows. It appears that there are rules regarding packaging and labeling. It appears also rules about security and age verification. And curious, can we get that in so that if you violate those portions of RERACA, if you violate those provisions, that we can also kick to these things of seizure. So it's sort of part A and part B. It looks like there's recovery of costs provisions that the state allows. So can we see those in this ordinance?
In our conversations with the Attorney General's office, they do not actually think to be fair, they don't actually think we need to pass this ordinance, other than to make it easier to make it a municipal violation. But all of those powers are now, like, it's their opinion that we have that authority, but you have to go through the court system to get it. So, but so it is a violation, like if you do not package it correctly, like most of 21A-420C talks about the activity, but part and parcel of that activity that it be packaged in accordance the way, like and if you go to the dispensary, it's just a white box, and it says, it says what it is, it says what the hybrid, is, and what the THC level is, and it has to have you must be 21, and like all of the things that go into also beer packaging or whatever, right? That those are all sort of part and parcel of. And the reason we drafted the adopting all of the civil enforcement and civil penalties language in their entirety, as broadly as we did, was to incorporate it so that we wouldn't just say so that we wouldn't get caught in well, you adopted these parts, but you didn't adopt the other requirements. We were trying to be as broadly inclusive as we intended to be.
Let me just, Mr. Majority Leader, it looks like the way you drafted it under B1, no business shall operate in violation of what's in the state statute. And I hear you explaining packaging, labeling, security, age verification is there. Perhaps we just need a recitation, because right now the recitations refer only to the sale by the unlicensed.
Great. But that's why we drafted it, that no business shall operate in 21A-420C, like that's all of the all of its provisions.
Would it be possible to include a recitation that refer to things like packaging, labeling, security, and age verification? Is my question.
I caution against it because, again, we're going to get into a situation where someone's going to challenge it on well, you listed these things, that's not what I did. I violated it some other way that you didn't.
But right now, the recitation lists only one thing and not the others, is my concern. It lists only. Right now, the way the recitations explain, it explains only that the prohibition is on the sale, essentially, by unlicensed operators. And then if there's the sale, here are your consequences. I'm concerned that right now, we're at the exclusion of these other prohibited actions under the state law from the recitations, at least makes it appear that those are not also prohibited.
Okay. I don't think it's necessary, but I leave it to the discretion of the committee.
Just ask them in the form of a question.
I think it's an interesting point because my impression of this was always that the purpose of these fines was to go after unlicensed distributors and smoke shops that are illicit, they're selling these, and not necessarily to go after people that were not packaging it correctly. But certainly that's a violation, and so if there's room for it in the language, the thing that would worry me is there's so much in here that it would be difficult to be exhaustive. So maybe I don't know if it's better to just take this one out and just say any violation without any specificity, or to comb through this and try to find every single thing so that we make sure we don't miss something.
And they're almost entirely overlapping. People who are selling it illegally are also mispackaging.
But you could have licensed distributors who are packaging improperly and letting people, letting kids in the door is the concern. And I guess if I may, Mr. Majority Leader, asking the question. My other question goes to sort of two things. I mean, I appreciate why you do everything by reference to the state statute, but I guess I have a desire to see our city ordinance say what it's prohibiting so that our residents and people can understand what it means. And I guess I'm wondering, just to explain a little more what it would mean to try to lay out some more of the specifics of the state statute here so that.
This is why we did it through the exhaustive explanations and the recitals. Again, it's one of the things that we've recognized and looked at and have come up against time and time again with the way city ordinances are drafted is that they end up being limited because they don't incorporate the full enforcement power that the state has authorized. And this is not just a cannabis issue, it's zoning, like zoning enforcement, where we are stuck with a $250 cap because that was what the cap was in 1925 when it was originally authorized. It's never been changed. And because it's not done by reference to what the state statute is as amended from time to time, we wind up with these legacy provisions that handicap our municipal ability to enforce what the state has granted us the enforcement powers under. And
if I may, last question. I guess that's another question I wanted to ask, which is, we're presuming amended from time to time is beneficial because when there are amendments we like, they're then incorporated. But are there possibilities that there might be amendments at the state level that we wouldn't want incorporated at the city level, and that we actually want to do a review of our city ordinance when there are the state amendments?
It becomes permissive. I mean, if you mean that where it becomes more, well, it becomes more restrictive because the state decides, well, we want to like rein in our crazy municipalities. We can't do more than the state grants us the authority to do, so that would rein in our ability. If we take the full amount of authority that we are granted as amended from time to time, we can then decide, like as a municipality, like, okay, we're not going to pursue although we are authorized to do so, we're not required necessarily to do the full, all right, we're not gonna go after every corner boy, right? This doesn't, or every bodega, whatever it is, like, we have the authority to do it, but we don't, as long as we do it even our own policies internally, if we do it internally, we do it even-handedly and across the board under like the policies that we set. Although there is additional authority, we don't have to reach the extent of the envelope unless we want to.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I saw Alder Marchand next.
Take this one? Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And am I speaking into the microphone? I think I am. Okay. Thank you for your presentation, for the work that you've done on this. I want to just focus on the question of who will enforce this and what language in the ordinance would be most appropriate. And to get to that, I just want to ask a few seemingly basic questions that perhaps I should already know the answer to, but I'm going to ask them anyway. So when we look at the draft you just gave us, which is in our hands, the second page, Section B, violations of Connecticut General Statutes, Section 21A-420C, civil penalty appeal. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 subsections. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them mentioned a member of the city staff who's supposed to do something or has the authority to do something. In Section 2, it's the mayor making a determination. Section 3, it's the mayor or designee. They provide information or evidence. Section 5, it's the economic administrator or designee. And then Section 6, it's the mayor. And so So different leaders of the city government are being mentioned, being able or charged, either being able to do things or being charged with doing certain things. And so that raises in my mind, the question of the distributed quality of the act of enforcing. But at the end of the day, someone's going to be in charge of it all. Usually that's the mayor, right? But when you think about the actual physical concrete steps that city staff may take, it might be someone who works for the public health department who is doing a tobacco licensing program and stumbles upon something and notices something. It might be it might be LCI showing up to a store because somebody's complaining about the front yard and then stumbling upon something. It could be a cop going into a store to take a license to someone and seeing something. Any number of city agents could initiate the process of enforcement. And then once the process is initiated, then there's different roles for different people to play. Clearly, if you're going to take suit, if you're going to take something to court, you want that person to be high up in the food chain. But the person who physically grabs the stuff and takes it away is probably going to be a uniformed officer who's a lieutenant or sergeant or somebody like that, right? And so there's lots of different city staff who are involved in the overall action of enforcement. What I'm trying to understand is, like, how do we have language that authorizes all of them to do that in whichever roles that they may have, but who's in charge of it? And in particular, I guess, who's in charge of the administrative side of it, which would be filing paperwork and running a hearing process, right? And so for me, I would want the wording to be inclusive enough that all of those city agents could play a role, right? Because we would want all city agents who have occasion to go into a bodega or a corner store to have the ability to notice something and initiate something. Now, maybe they have to bring somebody back to actually do the physical inspection or whatever. So that's what I'm thinking about. And so I'm just thinking about, should it just be the mayor for all of these things? Because the mayor can designate anybody in his employees to do X, Y, Z, or Q?
I'll say that is probably the easiest thing. Part of the way it's actually structured is the enabling statute says upon the vote of the legislative body, you get these powers, which is how we've been reading it, and was why we've been working with Chair Furlow and to getting to this and sort of hashing through it as often as for as many hours as we have. The enabling statute, specifically in certain circumstances, says the chief executive officer of the municipality may, upon this vote, may do these things, shall do, and then has to be. We were structuring it so that the practical level of enforcement, so like the person who would be swearing out the affidavit for court would be, in effect, since it didn't have tracked zoning, who's like the deputy for zoning enforcement and who's been working hand in glove with the on zoning enforcement and is in and out of businesses like this and is sees it on a daily basis. The reason it's structured the way it is, where it says the mayor, is that those are the portions of the ordinance that are simply tracking the state enabling statute. And then by identifying the economic development administrator, we were trying to make it as broad as possible, put it under a coordinator who also, the EDA has the building department and building enforcement, which includes zoning enforcement under it, as well as LCI.
But not the Department of Public Health.
But does not have the Department of Public Health.
Nor the police department.
Right. The reason we kept it under the enabling statute says that the mayor applies to the Superior Court for the seizure,
right.
And then for the seizure order, which is then the court then directs the chief of police to make the actual seizure.
Okay, so that's the chain of command there.
Right.
See, I'm just trying to make sure that, look, when you say the mayor can designate anybody who's employed to do anything. And if he says, I told you to do it, then it's the mayor acting. That designate, right?
It's a unitary executive.
And so, but I just think because this is gonna end up being collaborative and folks working together in various ways, I understand you need to have like an administrative home for a certain process. But I just don't want to inadvertently create channels that we would be bumping up against that limit the ability of different members of the administration to do different pieces of it.
Our office has no objection to it being mayor designates, the mayor or his designee, does the enforcement, which as in our conversations with Michael Piscatelli and with the zoning enforcement office, we sort of anticipate that's where we'll wind up. The reason we did not recommend the health director is that appeals from an order of the health director are taken effectively as a de novo review by the state health department, and it becomes it's effectively a full-blown trial, whereas a full evidentiary hearing, which you can wait for months to get an answer. Whereas,
so certainly we don't want to do that.
Right, the idea being streamline it through the 7-152C process. Like we saw you were violating, we're issuing the $30,000 civil penalty through the same process that we already have for like anti-blight and housing violations.
Okay.
Which are all sort of under the EDA.
Okay. I just want to make sure that the director of public health is able to tell her inspectors, here's the new ordinance, I want you to be looking for these things too. Now, once they find something, they need to know which department to put the paperwork in so the person can file the right paperwork to go to the next level, whatever. But I want all the department heads who have people out in the field who might have occasion to go in these places to be able to get them to.
Right, we're not foreclosing them.
I think that any of them can. I think all 5 says is who can issue the notice of penalty. Because it has to come from, so we want it to come from the same, that at least to be issued by the same person.
Okay. So one more, if I may, Mr. Chair. Since you mentioned subsection 5 there, it says, such person may request a hearing which shall be conducted in accordance with the provisions of so on and so forth. What are those provisions? And are they substantially different than the kinds of hearing officer processes that we've adopted in the city for other kinds of violations?
7-152C is the standard anti-blight hearing procedure, and it basically says when you're issuing you a civil citation, you have 3 options. You can pay it. You can say like, okay, you can admit liability and we know what the fine is. In this case, it's always $30,000. You can within 10 days request a hearing, and then that would be a live hearing in front of the hearing officer the same way an anti-blight hearing would be held. Or you could do nothing, and if you do nothing, after 10 days, you're deemed to have admitted liability. We're going to impose it. Then we simply take it as effectively ex parte. We take it to the hearing officer, and we say, like, we're going to the hearing officer on this day. Here's the evidence of the violation. Here's the affidavit. Please impose the fine, and then it gets treated as any other. So I mean, it's a little different because there's, with businesses that are leasing, you can't immediately, it's not like anti-blight where you can immediately lien the property. But then we can file for these things to be, to convert that into a court judgment, which we can then go after.
So in essence, it's the same basic process that we've implemented for other kinds of violence.
Exactly. I'm sorry, yes.
That's what I wanted to know. Thanks very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I think it was Alder Rodriguez.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first question that I have is in reference to the packet that you provided to us. Is am I to understand that why this ordinance is important, that this data comes from was collected through the Attorney General State of Connecticut office?
Correct.
Or does this come from some other source?
What we gave you is and I intended it primarily as a background and informational package to sort of impress on the committee why we think doing this, going through this exercise is important in the first place. Rod and I both attended a symposium at the at the AG's office, in which this was the presentation that they gave us, and it had been it was sort of a cataloging of the 2.5-year process that it took them to get that Planet Zaza shut down, because at the time, the tools that the state, even the AG's office had, were not sufficient. And this is now like a constant, it is like dealing with the whack-a-mole elements of legalizing cannabis is a ongoing process at the legislature. This was primarily to be intended as a informational, and to answer directly answer the question, that data is all collected by the AG's office, and this was the slide deck that they presented. As I said, I just wanted to make sure that the committee and the alder and the full board have the sort of full sense of like Ron and I have gone down a rabbit hole on this thing that, unexpectedly sort of gone down a rabbit hole, and it is, it's several meetings, it's now been several meetings, calls to DCP and their staff attorneys and to the AG's office, and meeting with a dozen other town attorneys who are going through the same, like, you would think like Basra or Portland are like being overrun by smoke shops, but they're like Portland was saying they had like 3 of them. I'm like, well, there's like 5 people. Everybody gets their own smoke shop. But this is, the efforts to evade the engage in the unlicensed production, sale, and distribution of cannabis products is clearly a criminally backed enterprise. It's not just some dude selling, homegrown weed from the back. I'm sure there is some of that, but it's organized crime, is what it is. It's just, now we're addressing it as a civil, on the civil side, rather than as primarily as a jail, an incarceration approach.
So basically, this data indicates that since 2002, individuals ages 12 and older, the numbers are increasing in reference to cannabis use, and that this uptick has to do with the products that are available through convenience stores, gas stations, bodegas, and other stores.
And the proliferation of traditional, you see the signs of illicit products, the picture, there are ones that are identified as 27,000 milligrams of THC per gram. 3 count. That means presumably 3 servings. Like on this one, it's they're little cookies. That each cookie is 900 milligrams of THC. authorized gummy in the state of Connecticut is like 5. Like, kids are getting, I mean, these things are like, oh, here we go. Starbuzz gummies, Lifesavers gummy sours, medicated gummy sours, Dopefish, 420 Kush Kool-Aid drink. These, I mean, Lay's potato chips. Lay's potato chips. The effort to your point, these are clearly being marketed, well, not exclusively to children, but as to be flashy and certainly attractive to minors. Let's put it this way, even local, I mean, on a local scale, when we're at the Babes R Us, you have the murals inside were with Bart Simpson smoking a joint. At Hyros, it was all in the Mario Brothers, themes. It'd be nice if we could actually get some of the trademark holders to, but like part of this is, like I said, it's all Latin. It's like once one of these things dissolves and they just create a new LLC. At the end of the day, it all ends up all being the same people, but there were some variety of. Anyway, so this was intended to be more informational and just trying to impress upon the community how. I mean, we have been, like I said, we've gone down a rabbit hole on this. We didn't necessarily intend to, but you start peeling back the onion, and you just, it's just layer after layer.
Thank you. And looking again at the section my colleague looked at in reference to the second page, B, violations. The section number 2, where it says if the mayor determines that a business has opened. My question doesn't stem in reference to what my colleague has already asked. It stems more around how are these events going to happen? Are they going to happen at the same time? For example, in the 2, it says the mayor may apply to the Superior Court for relief as set out in such section. And then in 3, it says the appropriate state licensing agency for its determination on any appropriate licensing enforcement action. Are those going to happen at the same time?
These are all going to be overlapping because we're going to be whatever the agency that ultimately sort of does the, again, to Alderman Marchand's point, if the health department sees something, they then refer it to let's say it's the zoning enforcement office that actually winds up doing this, that they go in, they do their investigation, they then swear out the effectively, in order to apply on behalf of the city, on behalf of the mayor, they will, that zoning enforcement office will then swear out the affidavit. I observed X, Y, and Z. I conducted an investigation on X date. I investigated and observed the following, violations of RERACA and Section 21A-420C, and requesting that on behalf of the city, and requesting that the court issue a seizure order. As part of that, the city does have to provide copies to the department, the Commissioner of Consumer Protection, and the Attorney General's office. So those pieces will happen anyway. But if there's also, the idea is that there may be multi-agency and like city and state task forces that are going out so that the city can provide assistance to DCP and its agents or the Attorney General's office if they take. One of the changes that has been made is that now a violation of RERACA is a per se violation of the Connecticut Unfair Trade Practices Act. So it's deemed to be a deceptive trade practice to sell without a license, sell improperly packaged, which means that we're just expanding, what we're really doing here is expanding the toolbox for ways to enforce, whether it's a straight civil suit. You know, like we're alleging that you have violated, this is the violation of RERACA, and that is a violation of CUPPA. We want money damages. Or we're going, and by going to the Superior Court, swearing out the affidavit, effectively it's a seizure warrant. They call it an order, but it's effectively you're asking for a warrant to go in and seize the merchandise and any proceeds. Because one of the violations that's identified is that if you're selling unlicensed cannabis or improperly labeled or packaged cannabis alongside cigarettes or vapes, you can seize all of it. That violation, so the intent here is to hopefully deter some, as much as I make it sound like a little defeatist in some of these, at some points today, it's really, we're asking just to let's adopt the currently fairly potent enforcement options, and also leave open the opportunity that if we get, one of the things that they've said in New York City is that the shutter orders have been game changers, because it does allow you to appeal back to court, but they know they're gonna lose and they just walk away. I mean, it is going to have the unfortunate effect of empty storefronts in some cases, but that is one of the, but if we get that authority come October, we can cross that bridge and determine how as a city, we want to, utilize that power, that authority, or not, depending on how we're, to the extent that, I suppose if all of these things converted to what looked like clothing boutiques and and people weren't hanging around, and obviously it's the loitering and the attractiveness of for kids and other stuff that make these smoke shops, particularly the smoke shops, particularly noxious, right? Would we start trying to crack down on every clothing boutique? That probably not. I don't know. Maybe, but if less people are loitering outside, and it becomes clearly these are the negative effects. I don't know. But let's cross that bridge when we get to it. Let's adopt let's adopt the authority that we're granted under this enabling statute, and then we're gonna. I'll say we're gonna trip up occasionally, but if we have the authority, then we can figure out the processes and procedures and make sure that and hopefully deter some of this activity going forward.
And lastly, if the mayor, it says in number 3, that the mayor or designee may provide any information or evidence. And I know from personal experience that hearing officers, they have a way of weighing evidence. So would you not say that firsthand testimonial would be significant and that it's already kind of watered down when you're putting it in a document if the person is not in front of you. So that it would be significant who would actually be completing that documentation, and that it should be the individual who has witnessed
Yes,
or evidence the crime or the incident.
absolutely.
Thank you,
I mean,
Mr. Chair.
Absolutely, these would be, presumably, it's the agent, whatever agent, whether it's the police officer, zoning enforcement, whoever, the health enforcement, who had direct and first-hand knowledge and can say, I was conducting a investigation to ensure that they had the tobacco sales license at, I went into Vapes R Us and they were clearly selling THC alongside of vape and cigarette products. This officer's understanding that is a violation of RERACTA section 21A-420C. We're asking for a seizure warrant. Or we're doing so in support of whatever state agency is seeking the enforcement.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions from committee? Thank you so much for all your work on this. Thank you.
I'm sure we'll be back at some point.
October, right?
Well, no, hopefully the idea is that if we pass this, the little tweak that we made, come October,
we'll be good to go.
We'll be good to go.
Thank you again.
Point of clarification
For the counselors?
Just
Okay.
want to share, I'm Evelyn Rodriguez and Carmen Rodriguez.
Oh,
I noticed in
yeah.
the document, you
I got it
just put
backwards.
Rodriguez.
Okay.
No, you just put Rodriguez.
I will confess that
Thank
I could not recall which older it was that had asked the question.
Thank you.
I will cop to my faulty memory on that. Thank you so much, Alders. Thank you much.
Thank you. Do anyone from the public wishing to testify on this matter? Anyone from the public wishing to testify on anything we've heard this evening? Anyone from the public wishing to testify on any of the two items that we've heard this evening? Is there a motion to close the public portion? Madam Vice President, Vice Chair.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we close the public portion of this meeting.
Second.
And moved and seconded. Any discussion on closing the public portion of this meeting? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? The public portion is now closed. I'm going to just extend a little bit of privilege as chair. I would like, well, maybe I shouldn't say it like that, but it's my thought that we need more information on item 1. And I would like to continue the discussion if possible, but let me say this, that if you would like to discuss it or amend it, or vote on it this evening, then I will entertain a motion. And yes, Madam.
Mr. Chair, there is still more information that's necessary for this item 1, as a lot of things have been testified on tonight. So I'm making the motion that we do table this this topic, if that's an appropriate request, so we can continue with the discussion regarding this this topic. I don't know if that's appropriate.
Tabling is tough.
Okay, table.
We could just pass over it.
Okay, so I make a motion
But
to.
we wouldn't have to make a motion.
Oh,
We would
okay.
just, we would just leave it in committee and then come back to it.
Continue the question.
Yeah, or there could be a motion, which would need to be seconded, and then we can have discussion. And then if you wanted to have discussion, then we can always, after that discussion, withdraw the motion.
We can.
That's not a real clean way to do that, but we can do it that way too, if you'd like to have discussion on it. So what I'm saying is, I don't want to hinder anyone's ability to have discussion or possibly amend it or possibly cause us to vote on it this evening.
If we have a motion to discuss it and then we decide we want to pass over it, is that possible?
It is possible. It's not very clean, but it is possible. It would just mean that whoever made the motion would then have to withdraw.
For the purposes of,
oh, we can do it like that also. Yes, for the purposes of discussion, we can move the item.
Second.
Well,
I should finish my statement.
Yeah.
For the purposes of discussion, I move item 1.
Second.
Have been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Alder Marchand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually agree that we should take a little bit more time on this. For me in particular, I appreciate the urgency with which the applicant and proponents have come forward tonight and said this would be an appropriate move, and it certainly serves the interest of the institution that we've heard so much about. But I think it's worth us thinking more about the full collection of IL zoned parcels in our city. I think, we saw the map in the presentation. I think it's worth looking at those maps in more detail, neighborhood by neighborhood, just to think through potential impacts and possibilities by allowing this use to be moved from not allowed to being as of right. And that's one thing I would appreciate the opportunity to do, is look, because context matters a lot. I was trying to make that point earlier. Context matters a lot. And so I would be amenable and supportive of us taking a little bit more time with this and not voting this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Marchand. Further discussion? Alder Theodore?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree. I really appreciated Alder Mark's question about how the alders in the ward's been contacted. And I think, yeah, looking at the context in each of these neighborhoods, maybe it makes a ton of sense for the area around Austin, New Haven, but for the plot in the Hill or in Westville, it makes less sense. I found the argument that this is in line with the other things that are as of right now. That made sense to me. But I thought Elihu Rubin's point that do we want all of these things that are currently as of right to actually be as of right was fair. And so just because this fits with what is currently as of right, does that mean we should pass it when we need to, I think, reevaluate this zone as a whole? And I understand that reevaluation may be years, a decade out. But yeah, I think more neighborhood-based reflection on what this would look like is important. But generally, yeah, really appreciated everyone's comments on how much these institutions can change the fabric of a neighborhood. And yeah, also wonder if we can think about how to make this permitting process or this exception process easier if it does not become as of right.
Any further discussion? Alder Marks?
Just share that, whatever we decide, I just want to thank Los New Haven for all it does. It sounds like a gem. I haven't been there myself. Look forward to going soon. And appreciate that you do have the variance for the moment. So I think it's important that for the moment there is a variance in place so that Los New Haven has sort of immediate protection. So that's significant to me. And my willingness to take this, or willingness to pass over this.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. We do appreciate what they said, but this is not about Lost in New Haven, so we just want to keep that on the record. Because we certainly don't want to be accused of changing zoning for one business or organization. That's very important. Alder Evelyn Rodriguez.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things that surfaced through everyone that came to speak was that they brought up a lot of issues: housing, taxes, spaces used to store things, youth initiative and youth importance, spaces to be able to address our youth in the city. And all of those things are important, but one thing that is critical is that the zoning ordinance exists for a clear reason, and it's to protect the interest of everyone in the city. So as a result of that, I think it's important for us not give the significance of culture and the work that is being done through this wonderful entity that's come before us, that we should make sure that we do look at that carefully. But someone else did mention about the variance. And I understand there's a question and concern here about hardship, maybe specifically in this case, that could be looked at in another way. I don't know, but I just want to bring that. The zoning ordinance exists in this case in the interest of everyone. And we have good representation of individuals opposed and individuals for it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Yes, Alder.
Mr. Chair, I withdraw my
Well,
motion.
I want to say one thing before you do that.
I withdraw my withdrawal.
Let me just kind of talk about why I would like to give this a little bit of pause and work on it a little bit more, is because this is seldom do we get a report that is approved by staff from city plan and denied by the commission. And the absence of city plan this evening causes me to give pause, because I think that we should hear from them, from the staff, and to give us their take on what happened. I do trust Attorney Combs' interpretation, but we do need to hear it from staff. And so I don't think that we're going to tarry long with this. I think that we'll get a pretty quick turnaround. It's not our intention to drag this out for months and months, but we do need to make sure that alders are in the loop of what's going on. We take zoning very serious. We are the zoning commissioners for the city. So we take that very serious, but we also recognize that a lot of our zoning is outdated, and that zoning reform is necessary in many places. But we do need to slow down and make sure that what we're doing with this citywide is going to fit what we feel will be appropriate. And so for that reason, I'm glad that we're going to give this a little bit of pause. Alder Marchand.
I withdraw my motion.
Does that need to be seconded?
Second.
Does it need to be seconded? Probably not. Yeah. Okay. Let's just do it anyway. It's been moved and seconded. Everyone in favor of Alder Marchand withdrawing the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So that passes. I don't think we need to do that, but because we're in legislation, let's just err on the side of however that goes. Okay. Item, Madam Vice Chair.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion for item 2.
Second.
Having moved and seconded, is there discussion on item number 2? Yes, Madam Vice Chair.
Yes, I'm in support of this change, because when you really look at it, it just really gives us the opportunity to look at state statute if violations are being made. It doesn't look like we made a whole lot of changes to this area in the zoning books. But again, the reference to the state statute really supports our moving forward for any bad actors. And I like what the testimony that was provided in regards to not writing everything out, because if we write everything out and maybe we miss something or something changes with the next year or two or whatever, whatever, we'll have to come back to the table. But if we just reference the actual law, whatever changes happen statewide, we can roll with the punches of that change. And so I think that is definitely, as a board, we voted and made our own laws around cannabis use, sale, things of that sort. But we definitely have to regulate, and people need to understand that there are consequences and repercussions for those violations, because we have to keep our children safe. And the reality is the packages, it's about branding, right? It's about trademarks, about branding. If I see a stack of Starburst, I'm like, oh, I love Starburst, but you gotta watch the Starburst that you eat now. So I think that this is really going to help. Is it gonna stop? Is it gonna shut everything down? 9 times out of 10, no. But it's definitely a step in the right direction of keeping our children safe. So that's, again, I am in support of this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Is there further discussion? Madam Vice Chair.
So I move to amend this item by substitution.
Second.
Having been moved and seconded, is there discussion?
The court counsel presented us with an amendment tonight for our consideration, and I ask your favorable vote.
Is there further discussion, Alderman Marchand?
I agree that we should adopt the updated draft as the baseline for our discussion this evening, and I support the motion to amend by substitution, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Marchand. Is there further discussion on the amendment by substitution? All in favor of amending this item by substitution, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? The item passes. We are now back to the item as amended. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, because this is an ordinance to support enforcement. I believe that the language in reference to in our section 3 should at least include there something related to first-hand testimonial, because I fear that when it does go for an appeal or for a hearing, that hearing officer, if there is not clearly in those documents first-hand testimonial, that they may just throw the case out and enforcement will not happen. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So you're making a.
And the second
well,
page.
Hold on, you're making a motion, right?
Okay.
You're making a motion to insert language in
B3.
B3. It says the mayor or designee may provide.
Any information or evidence.
Oh, okay. So you're making a motion to change the language to insert firsthand witness.
Yes, any
Okay,
information.
So what we'll need to do first is let's have that seconded, and then we can discuss. Is there a second on this?
Where would the change be?
In B3, may provide any information or evidence, and maybe in parentheses, first-hand testimonial of a business violating the provisions, and so forth.
Is there a second? Okay, seeing none, the motion fails.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion on this item? Alder Theodore?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think any way we can maximize our municipal authority on this issue, we should. It is one that is so local, affecting our youth. I have a bunch of smoke shops in my ward. I've appreciated the police department's efforts to crack down, but however we can continue to protect our youth and our residents, we must. And yeah, this makes sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Alderman Marchand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to speak in strong support of this ordinance amendment. I think we need to give our city staff all the tools available to us in this state to rein in the bad behavior and the bad actors we've seen in this space. I also want to thank the members from the Corporation Counsel's office for their hard work. And I think what we have in front of us is stronger than what we first saw. I appreciate the memo. And the only concern I have, which I think is probably not going to be a big deal, is that the ordinance amendment before us does not name the actual section or chapter or article of the Code of Ordinances to which this would be inserted. So perhaps that's something the chair can look at with city staff between now and the second reading. Or maybe that will just be done automatically as part of the adoption process, but that's just a question perhaps that could be answered offline.
I see staff nodding their head yes.
Other than that, I think it's a strong step in the right direction, and I ask colleagues to vote in support of it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Alderman Marks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm also in strong support of this. I appreciate Corporation Council's large amounts of work and the chair of our committees as well. And we had a very engaging community meeting out in the Ward 25, 26, 27 area where dozens of our constituents came out and were just really irate and concerned and distressed about the Big Saros. So this is an incredibly important step towards addressing these problems. I do feel quite strongly that I'd like to see the recitations fleshed out some more regarding the other powers that exist within 21A 420C. I think that I appreciate Corporations Council's answer to why the statute language itself should be clean and precise for what Vice Chair suggested. You know, that we don't want to leave anything out and we want to be able to amend from time to time with the movement. But as we pass this, I think public education is perhaps one of the most important things. Our constituents need to know that we're taking this action, and the wrongdoers need to know that we're coming to get them. So I think it's incredibly important as this gets pushed out and as we stand by this, the whereases explain other things. It was sale, packaging, security, age of entrance, the things I asked of Corporation Council, and I would like to see whereases included in those things as well as the right to recoup money. I think it's important that these things be set forth. Thank you, Mr. Majority.
Thank you. Are you making a motion to add something to the recitals?
So I would like to make a motion to add to the recitals additional language regarding the other prohibitions in RERACA beyond just the licensure, which is the only prohibition, beyond the sale, which is the only prohibition that's in the recitals currently.
Is there a second?
For the purposes of discussion, I will second.
Okay. Further discussion? Alderman Marchand?
Yeah, I'm not going to vote in favor of this amendment because we would actually have to have the very precise wording on the amendment, which we don't have. But I think that's perhaps something that could be addressed before the second reading. If it were, I would say, if we were to add a whereas clause, a recitation that outlined other authorities that we intend for this ordinance to embrace as a city, that we would use words like including but not limited to. Because I take seriously the point that, you know, the recitations are there to help show our legislative intent. I worry that if we try to be exhaustive, we'll miss something which wouldn't be helpful to our cause. So if it's helpful to give an additional few examples to show the breadth of the authorities that the city wishes to adopt, that would be fine with me, but I think we need to craft that carefully. And unless somebody is ready to craft that right now, I think we probably shouldn't vote on an intention, but not a like precisely worded amendment, which we haven't done just yet. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
In reference to what the attorney indicated, Attorney Pinto, that he said this is a work in progress, this ordinance, and I think I strongly approve of it, and I understand that that's what it is. So as we move forward, we can always improve it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Alderman Marks?
I don't know if I need to make a motion or we can deal with it another time. I think there was some corrections needed regarding.
Well, we're still dealing with your amendment.
Thank
So
you.
once we vote on that, then we can
Thank you.
take other motions that there already. Is there any further discussion on adding more recitals to this ordinance amendment? I substitute. Okay, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Adding, well, no, we're not doing this right.
What are the recitals?
Yeah, so we can't vote on this because we don't have any recitals. So the suggested thing to do would be for you to withdraw your motion.
So,
Right.
appreciating the discussion we've had, as it sets forth some intention of how we intend to proceed, I will withdraw my motion.
Thank you. And I don't think we need to vote on that. Misty, we don't need to vote on the original. Okay, so we won't do that. Is there any further discussion on this item as amended or remarks?
My other motion, I appreciate this. I think there was a need for some clarification as my colleague from the 25th Ward had suggested that it needs to be, I think, mayor or designee in certain places, not just mayor. I'm not sure that we have the right, I'm not sure that we have the correct actor. So I'm moving, for instance, that subparagraph 5 state the mayor or designee may issue to such a person the notice of civil penalty.
You want to change letter or number 5 from the economic development administrator to the mayor or designee?
I guess to clarify, it might be multi-pronged. I think that 5 needs to, I think that 6 needs to be the mayor or his designee may institute the civil action.
Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do, let's take 2 steps back and then explain it again.
Okay. So I guess.
So it sounds like you're looking for conformity throughout
Yes.
this whole process, or all of these where some say the mayor and designee,
Yes.
and you would like for it all to say the same thing.
There's the part A of my motion, and part B would be regarding.
So let's take one at a time, one motion at a time.
Thank you.
So, all in favor of, oh yeah, discussion on that motion, yeah. This needs to be seconded. Thank you, Alder. This needs to be seconded. Is there a second on changing, this from the various departments to just say the mayor and its designee? That's what your motion is. Is there a second on this?
Well, if I may,
Let's see if we can get a second, and then we'll do the clarification in the discussion.
can I suggest that my motion is really only relating to paragraphs 2, 3, and 6, where it says mayor. I'd like them all to say mayor or designate. I'll have a second suggestion regarding 5.
Right, so that would be that's.
The conformity,
Yep.
please.
Yep, that's what I said. Okay, moved and seconded, discussion.
Just looking for some conformity. Oh, Mr. McGurk.
Okay, any further discussion, Alderman Shan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate Alder Marks for bringing this up. It is, of course, part of what I was asking about. What I was seeking to do was to make sure it was worded broadly enough to empower all the appropriate city staff to be involved in the enforcement actions, varied as they are. It's a multi-step process. And what I heard them say is that some parts of the statute specifically charge or designate the mayor as the one who needed to do something.
Mm-hmm.
For example, issuing a civil citation. And so in that case, I think we would want to be in conformity with what the state statute says. But I don't know that we need to be uniform or utterly consistent in all of it. If, when we say the mayor shall, my question is, if it says the mayor shall, can the mayor tell anybody in the staff go do something on his behalf? The sense I got was yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so in some cases, I don't think or designee is actually needed. That was what I took from that discussion. Maybe you think like, well, why do you even say the mayor or designee if it's not needed? So that, that's why, like, we wordsmith these things, but we do it because we want to make sure that we don't trip up on any technicality that would prevent the city from doing what it needs to do. So for me, I'm a little bit reluctant to vote to amend the language because I took it from the discussion with the staff that basically the language we have is fine. The one question for us would be, do we want to actually name the economic development administrator as the person who's going to kind of be in charge of a certain part of the administration of the enforcement? So I don't know. I think maybe we can maybe not make the amendment at this time, would be my thought. But perhaps other colleagues heard those explanations differently than I did. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Madrid, I can
Thank
withdraw.
you. Is there further discussion first?
Mr. Chair.
Let's finish the
Sure,
discussion.
I withdraw.
If we can recall, Attorney Pinto did make reference to the discussion of the health director being the one to do the certain things of the enforcement. And
Are you making an amendment?
no.
I'm not following.
I'm going based on the discussion in reference to the item before us in terms of the discussion of who would do what, of putting item B 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to indicate the mayor only. Each of them, based on what the attorney shared with us, each of them were written in this manner, again, as to support what my colleague had indicated, looking at state statute and who would be responsible in terms of when the enforcement comes before them, who would actually be doing these steps. So as a result of that, that's again why I didn't consider making everything, cohesive and the same person in each of these as reporting, documenting, or collecting. And the mayor's office, they're not the ones who go out in the field. So it's a given that the mayor equals that staff personnel administration that goes out into the field and brings that first-hand testimonial. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Alder Marks?
I'm, if helpful, can withdraw my motion for the moment and would be able to look into this a little bit more with the possibility of amendment after the state statute is checked.
Okay, so you are withdrawing the motion?
Withdraw.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this item as amended?
This is my last motion.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Just regarding 5, and I think this is significant. The motion will be that economic development administrator be changed to mayor, so the mayor can then determine whether it should be the economic development administrator or the health department. The mayor can make the decision like which staff is best able to handle it at that point, if any administration in the future.
Is there a second? Okay, seeing none, the motion fails. We're back into the item as amended. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll just say, quickly, I appreciate Corp Counsel working with this. We've been working on this for months and months. If you remember, I first wrote it to kind of put some fire under them. And when they saw what I wrote, they took it quick and said, oh my goodness. And we came up with this. And so I appreciate the work that they've done. And I think this is a very large step to getting things under control in our city, with not just the smoke shops, but for any place that is selling cannabis that is unregulated. And so I think it's important that we say this is not a crusade against smoke shops, because there are some that are operating legally. But this is a crusade, if we call it a crusade, against anyone who is selling cannabis that is unregulated or packaged illegally, and they're in violation. And by this ordinance, they'll have to pay for it. And so with that, I ask colleagues to support this and give it a favorable recommendation to the board. All in favor of this item, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? The item passes with a favorable recommendation to the board. Is there a motion? Okay. Madam Vice Chair.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we, adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let's go home. We're adjourned.
Alderman, I think that makes sense of the change, but maybe we just,
Let's
We come
cut off.
We have to come off turn off the TV.
Let's come off.